Thank you. Can I first ask, in relation to the meeting that we attended in P&I, where it was raised tonight by one of the signatories that we had Councillor Vaughan come along to speak, Reddy and Vaughan, where it was first mentioned about Overton and Whitchurch being able to take further sites. What was the timescale between that meeting and the decision of the Cabinet? What was that timescale?
I think we'd already. I can't remember.
So after the meeting that we had in P&I, where we looked at all the sites over several nights, on that last meeting, at what point after that night did you and your Cabinet decide on this new formula? How did you decide that?
We'd been discussing it for a long time before that. Riddy and Vaughan stood up and made his speech.
When you say you was discussing it, were you discussing the formula, or were you discussing the possibility of Overton and Whitchurch taking more sites, more houses?
The formula.
So as a committee, when we were looking at all of the sites, you as a Cabinet are already looking at a different formula for determining housing development.
We were discussing, looking at, assuming that we got no instruction or recommendation from the committee, how we would go about it. But it was not as the Cabinet as such. It was just myself and some other members.
Can I ask, who was it? Because earlier on in discussions we've had with other people question, you referred to the Cabinet. Who actually were these people that you referred to?
My colleagues.
Can I just push you a bit more, and can I ask for those names of those colleagues? Do I take it they're councillors, or are you saying they're not councillors?
Colleagues are councillors.
Can I ask you for the names of the councillors that supported you in determining or coming up with this new formula?
They didn't necessarily support me. I asked their advice and took it and went away and did it myself, came up with it myself. So,
who were the councillors that helped you or gave you advice?
Actually, I don't think that's relevant. I'm not going to answer it.
As a committee, we were looking at sites, and we were looking at a criteria that was before us. You were, with councillors that you won't name, looking at a different formula that we weren't aware of as a committee that would give a different outcome. Is that? But you're not prepared. Can I just be clear? You're not prepared to tell us who those people were.
I'm not prepared, no. And I was just canvassing opinion. We were not actually formulating the formula at the time. It was only subsequent to the final P&I meeting, those excruciating nights of 3 nights that we had, did I then realize we had to come up with an answer. And that's how it came about. So there was no predetermination or things going on before P&I meetings.
Thank you. So just to be very clear, in agreeing the formula of this that we've got before us tonight, because it's the first time I've seen it, does that mean that each ward will take more houses? Is that what this formula... this is what I'm reading, and I'm struggling to understand it at this stage because it's hard to digest, but is that what that's telling me?
No, they may take less.
Could you maybe go through the formula with me? I know that we've already asked you to do it. Could you try to help me to understand which wards are going to take more and which are not going to take more?
I think I couldn't go through them all now individually, and there are, no, I don't think it's appropriate. At full council, there were debates about, we had motions and we had questions to yourself, and you mentioned that as a result of the work that's going on, there could be a possible increase in housing, and you said the figure of 9,000. Is that correct? Do you think, as a result of the work that's going to happen, we're going to see an increase in the numbers that is going to move from 760 and it may be greater? I've no reason on our figures at the moment to think that they're going to increase, or to confirm that they are. I suspect they may. I suspect that certainly all our neighbours, Winchester, West Berks, East Hants, who got thrown out completely, but Winchester were told to build another 1,500 houses. West Berks were told to build 2,000 more, and there seems to have been a return to the southeastern plans, or it's still in existence, the southeast plan in the inspectorate.
Thank you. Under the under the southeast plan, Whitchurch and Overton, over the whole period of that plan, was going to take a much smaller number. Could you give us some details as to what was planned for that area?
How do you mean, what was planned? What, under the southeast plan? No, I'm not in favour of the southeast plan.
In relation to that southeast plan, what it did say is because of the lack of employment, that Overton and Whitchurch could not accommodate high numbers, and that was, and that was protected. Why, under this new formula that you've created, are we going to see a higher number? Do you see that there's going to be more employment in Overton and Whitchurch in the future?
The southeast plan was revoked on Monday, and I had assumed, as everybody else had done, that it would not be referred to again. But it does seem as though the planning inspectorate is still using it as a guideline, but that's as far as I can go. So as far as I'm concerned, I take no notice of the Southeast Regional Plan.
Under the old plan, from 2006 to 2026, we were going to see 600 homes built across the whole of Hampshire, the rest of Hampshire, outside of the town, and we'd already seen 200 homes built. So for Overton and Whitchurch, they were only, I think Overton was going to see 60 homes built, and I think it was Whitchurch was going to see around 100. So this is going to see, as that has been revoked, this plan, your new formula is we're going to see a great many houses. The reason why the South East plan said there was not going to develop housing is because there wasn't employment. What is your formula? Why do you see that Overton and Whitchurch can accommodate so many more houses?
What we've said is that Overton and Whitchurch have underbuilt on average compared to like settlements over the last years, and that we intend to make sure that the infrastructure, and we're very strong on this, we are determined for any further building will be put in place properly.
So does that include employment? Are we going to see employment in those areas as well?
Well, I assume so. If we're putting in infrastructure and if we're putting in more houses, that is employment. Everyone would imagine.
I think one of the witnesses, one of the signatories talked about one of the other cabinet members and their webpage, Councillor J.O. Adina, saying that there was no development in Bramley or Sherfield and Loddon. Does that mean that those other two sites that we discussed on the night, Coalford and what was the other one? Razors Farm, are not going to come forward?
Yes, they're coming forward.
Does that include the two sites inside Bramley? Are they coming forward?
Yes.
We'll give you the answer. Apparently there's some sites within Bramley Village that aren't coming forward, which is, I think, is the point you're getting to. But the sites that you've referred to, Cufford Lane, Razor Farm, which are in Bramley Parish, are in the thing. So whoever's saying there is no development in Bramley either is being inaccurate or is referring to the village as opposed to the parish. But Councillor Leake, okay, I'm sorry, I've taken this off, Peter.
I just want.
I mean, that's what the report seems to say. I mean, we've all read it, haven't we?
Chairman, could I just, I think that your statement may be incorrect. If there was a neighbourhood plan for Bramley, then those two sites could be included in Bramley. So they could come forward, not as you just said.
Thank you. I understand that, you know, because there's been a change to the travel of this document, the local plan, through the council, and in talking to officers and asking about the changes, I understand that it goes now to Cabinet, who will recommend to council in July before it then goes out for adoption. Do you think when you bring this forward as a Cabinet to council in July with your recommendation that council are going to support this document with a new formula?
Mr. James, sorry to interrupt you. Keep your question in mind. I'm just going to ask one of the officers to remind us what the procedure is, and then you'll ask the question in the right way, I'm sure.
Thank you, Chair. At the point of housing numbers being clarified, it's the draft local plan will go out for consultation. So there's a consultation exercise prior to that then being reported back to council for a second time before it's then submitted for examination.
No.
I've had written response from Andrew in this, which is not that is not correct.
Hunter.
Just in terms of the Cabinet decision sets out that the pre-submission local plan, so we're all used to that term, would go through the Cabinet, through P&I to Cabinet, and prior to public consultation it would go through Council as a sign-off, and then you would depending on the changes that were needed to be made to the plan after consultation, it would either go back through council or it could be just submitted.
Was the council meeting it's going to, is that the end of July currently for the first time?
That was when it would go, if subject to what happens with this before consultation. That's correct. Yeah, that's.
Go.
I know my timetable. So,
Adoption or something, but you didn't mean that. You
Okay.
mean what you now mean. Right, go on.
so it comes to us as to the council. Now, what do you think your chances are of us 60 councillors all supporting this with this new formula? Are you concerned that we will support this? And if we don't support it, what then will happen to this? Will it go out for consultation without our support as councillors? Or can it go out for support without our support?
I'm not sure what that situation is. I certainly hope we will support it when it comes to it.
But if we can't, what happens then?
Yeah, well, it has to go back for processing. It'll have to come back to P&I again. Well, I assume. I can't give you a definitive answer to that. Mr. Hunter may be able to help.
In relation to housing need, and I think it was picked up with Gary, that he talked about Whitchurch, and there was a figure, I'm not sure what he said, I think it was around 350 housing need for Whitchurch. What we're building is greater than the need, and you said that was for the rest of the borough. Where are those people in the borough going to come from to live in Whitchurch?
Everywhere. I can't predict where people are going to move to and from. I can't even predict whether the figures that we're predicting will be fulfilled. For instance, this year we're not going to build the same amount of houses as we did the previous year.
So, in relation to the assessment of need, it's not for local people, it's not for Whitchurch, it's a greater need, it's not for just the local community of Whitchurch. We're building houses in Whitchurch for other people to live in.
To a degree, you're always doing that because Basingstoke, as a borough, has a large migration, inward migration from within the UK.